Hello, and welcome to the Book Cafe, where we review books, talk fantasy, and interview authors and editors. We recently interviewed John Joseph Adams, the editor of Lightspeed and Nightmare magazines and the John Joseph Adams imprint, and have been putting up parts of his interview over the last few days. Tonight is the last part of the interview, so I hope you enjoy. Moving on to some advice for writers.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen more science fiction writing than most anyone working today. Um, what, in your opinion, distinguishes the good from the bad and the great from the good?
hmm Well, the great from the good is the harder two to answer. The good from the bad, I mean, it's something. It's kind of funny how easy it is to recognize, or not necessarily good from bad, but like whether it's good enough. It's good enough for what I'm looking for, or if it's like it's what fires my circuits, and like the more reading you do, the more sort of slush reading you do, the quicker you can identify. And so it's kind of funny because it's like I was worried at first how many like novel submissions and stuff that I was going to be getting, and like how I would have time to do all of the different things that I need to do. But the thing is like you can tell with a lot of novels just as quickly as you can tell with a short story whether or not it's for you. Like I don't have to read a whole novel and be like, oh, I'm really going to be on the fence about this, and it's like if you read the first chapter and you're like, I don't like this at all, like, okay, it's like that's you can maybe skim ahead if you think it has some promise, but I mean, in a lot of cases you can tell just as quickly as with a short story that that's not for you. And I mean, I think the most common ways of doing that are it's like the prose style or something. There's something just that doesn't work for you. It doesn't click for you as a reader. Maybe it will for other people. Probably a lot of them will for other people. I mean all the novels I'm reading are agented, so I assume that there's a good chance that a lot of these books that I pass on will get picked up by somebody else, and indeed many of the novels I have passed on have been picked up by other places. Um, but yeah, I mean, so there's the prose style. That's usually the first thing, or the voice. Those are the first things that sort of jump out to me, whether or not it connects. I connect to it, and then you get to stuff like character, and like the characters feel vibrant and real, and do they feel original, or does it feel like sort of a stock sort of situation? And then plot after that is sort of that's sort of my progression of how I'm approaching stories and novels, because I think like plot can be familiar and still work in a way that like the other things, the other characteristics failing doesn't work. So like if a plot is something that's familiar, you can still work with that and have a good read, if the other things are firing on all cylinders. But if the other characteristics aren't working, then it doesn't matter how great and inventive your plot is. So and I mean, I think like originality of plot is sort of like an overrated concept. It's like, sure, it's great if you have a nice, really original plot, but so many of the great, novels or stories or movies or whatever, it's like have plots that aren't like super original. It's like it's something that was like, okay, well, we've kind of seen something like that before. It's like half the novels you get on submission are pitched as like this meets that, and it's like, well, I mean, that's the reason for that is because like basically like almost every plot that you can imagine has been done in some form or another, and so it's just a matter of like how much of a fresh spin can you put on it, and how much of a how much of a unique sort of authorial stamp can you put on it with those other characteristics, the prose, the voice, the characters, and all that. So I mean that's sort of a long way around of answering your question. For the good versus great, like that's really hard to sort of boil down. And I mean, it's one of those things where like as an editor, I can see something that I like a lot, and I feel like I could make it better. And so like those are things that I feel like, okay, like those are usually good things. Like when it's starting off as good, and I hope that once I edit it, we can make it great. You know, whereas I don't know that I could actually describe what it is in general. It's like I don't think it's something I could generalize about. It's like more of a specific thing to each book or manuscript, where it's like kind of like it's like, well, there's a lot of good things working here, and there's some problems, but we can fix it. Um, if it's like if it's got a lot of good stuff going for it, but it has a lot of problems, and I'm not sure we can fix it, then maybe that's like on the next rung down, where it's like I'm not sure I'd quite say it's ready to be called good at this point. It's like it's got promise. It's like it's not quite good, but it's got promise. And then in those cases you have to decide. Do you want to try to go after something like that with the hope that you actually can lift it up, or do you just pass on it as not being for you because you don't connect enough with it to think that it's actually at that level. So yeah.
I guess a more specific on a more specific level. You could ask, as an editor, what are the sort of mistakes that you see writers make most often?
Yeah, aside from the sort of very basic things like you're just starting for a short story, for instance, like starting the story like a couple pages too early, like you got too much backstory, or you don't. It's like too much preamble before you actually get the thing going, because it's like you needed to write all that down in order to actually understand your story and to make your story work, but the reader doesn't actually need it. You can maybe just lop off those first couple pages and start after that. But so there's like pretty basic things like that, but then there's also this goes back to the different characteristics I was talking about earlier with like the just the voice and the prose and stuff. I think most often the things that I see failing are those things where it's like, okay, just the voice is really boring, or it's not distinct, it's too plain, or the style is too plain, and those are the things that I find most often. And then there's like just characters who maybe do unbelievable things, or like don't act in ways that are consistent with what's been previously established, that kind of thing. So, and yeah, it's almost hard to really pinpoint all that kind of stuff at this point. It's like the further along you get, it's like sure, I can generalize, but it's like I'm not even really judging things on that level consciously at this point. It's like I read something and I intuit a reaction to it, and it's like I know it's not working. I could stop and try to distill what it is about it that I don't like, but I just know I don't like it. So that's how I approach most editorial decisions at that level. Whether or not I want to buy something or whatever. But yeah. But what I said previously, that's about as much as I feel like I could generalize. Because obviously it's really a case by case basis. But that's the most often where things get hung up and make the stories not work and that kind of thing.
Possibly odd question related to that is of the submissions to Lightspeed, Nightmare, to your imprint, how many of them do you get that reaction of this isn't working? What's the how many of the stories that you get are worth publishing compared to the ones you receive?
Well, for the magazines, I know it's a very, very tiny percentage that is submitted, or that we buy versus what's submitted. It's like less than 2% or something like that we would actually buy. But the thing is, it's like that sounds scary. But the thing is, of those 2% that we actually do consider, they're only fighting with like maybe 3 or 4%. They're only in competition with about 3 or 4%. The other, sort of 90 whatever percent, those stories are all just obviously not good. there's a lot of stories. Probably at least 50% of the stories are just like, really, this person has only just started writing and they really don't know what they're doing at all yet, or they're just sort of fumbling around, and it's just not really ready to be submitted anywhere, and they just don't know any better, and they're just trying to learn. They're just trying to go through the process, and the only way you can learn is by doing it. So if you count, okay, knock off that 50%, and then like you have another 50%, and it's like, okay, so 2% of that is maybe what gets considered or published. Then and then you got another 2% that's like actually in contention, and then so you get the rest of the 46% there or whatever. It's like, it's like a lot of it's just like sort of competent, but doesn't really quite rise above, and the longer you do any kind of editing like this, it's like the more you sort of you see a lot of the same sort of pedestrian type stories, or stories that are like, okay, well, this is perfectly competent, and it's just not exciting. The more you see those kinds of things, the easier they are to identify. So it's like really, all the writers who are really competing to get in the magazine, it's like, sure, it sounds terrible to say that, like, oh, well, so few people actually get in. It's like, well, it's actually, you're really only, if you wrote a good story, you're really only competing with a very small percentage of stories that could even possibly get in. So it's like, you're not competing against that whole, 100%. You're only competing against like 4%. Of course, the question is, did you actually write a good story? And you might not be in the best position to know that. So yeah, it's, and good writers get rejected too. I mean, I reject writers that I've published before. There's writers I've published many times that every now and then it's like, okay, yeah, that's this one. I'm not sure what he's doing with this one, or this one just isn't for me, or that kind of thing. And it's like, luckily, people are generally professionals, and they understand that, like, this is how it works sometimes, and they don't get bent out of shape about it, even if you work together a lot. But it's when you're doing any kind of process like editing, where you're trying to curate content, it's like it's so subjective that you really can't take it personally. I understand it's hard not to sometimes, but it's like all you can do is buy what you think is good, and if I don't think it's good, then I'm not going to buy it. But yeah, so yeah, I guess I did more than answer your question about the percentages, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, no, that's great. The more information, the better, right?
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
So where do you see the future of your imprint?
Well, I'd love to see us win more awards and sell a ton of copies, get some New York Times bestseller action happening or something like that. All I can speak to is like what I would hope to see, what I would like to see. I don't want to make any predictions, and where I think we will end up. Because it's like, well, I don't really know. I had a call the other day with a really exciting writer who we're going to vie for the book in I think later this week, and so we'll see if we get that one. And it's like, if that comes through, that would be super exciting, because it would be a nice it would be a showstopper type of announcement if we were able to bring this author to the imprint. And so, of course, I hope that we get to do things like that.
No information on who it is.
What's that?
No information on who it is. No hints.
Oh no, I can't say. It'll be public fairly quickly. I think, based on how quickly this is all moving. But I can't say now though. Yeah. I hope as things continue on with the imprint that we figure out a way to not let any of these books slip through our grasp that I love and
no
that we
bet
on and everything. So it's like I said, things like Ka, that it's like, slipped through my grasp, and there's a couple other ones that we bid on and we didn't end up winning the bid, or we did the same, but then the author went in another direction. They went with another publisher. So I'm hoping that the more we establish ourselves as a premier imprint, or as a place that treats their authors well and publishes good books and gets award attention and sells lots of copies and stuff, I'm hoping that um, that we'll lose fewer of those, because at least those ones where it's the same amount, you know, um, uh, and I feel like, well, it's like the ones that we did, like the ones where we lost at the same bit. It's like, well, it's like we were still very new at that point. We hadn't really even really acquired anything yet, or maybe we had only acquired Carrie's book, something like that. So we hadn't really made too much headway as an imprint, and so we're still very new. So I can almost understand that. It's like, okay, well, fair enough. They went with somebody who's actually much more established at doing this already. Even if HMH is obviously established doing this,
Yeah.
but I'm new. So I definitely appreciate all my authors who took a chance with me, even though the imprint was new and everything. But yeah, hopefully as we continue on, there'll be less of those losses and more wins when every time we go after one.
So
yeah. I don't know if you saw, we acquired a new Greg Bear novel. I was very excited about that. Because obviously, like I said, well, geez, I've been a fan of his for like decades, and so it's like to actually now get to be his editor. That's super cool. Yeah, so I guess that's what my hopes are, that we get to win all those auctions and become like considered a premier destination for folks when they're looking for a new home for a book. All
right. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. This was. I hope you had as much fun with this as I did.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully the audio and video worked out okay. It's like I always struggle with video, trying to find the right lighting and everything. It's I guess it worked okay, but my glasses, I can see a reflection in my glasses the whole time.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
And also thank you for sending me Beacon 23. I think I'm going to be reviewing that one next.
Okay, great.
So yeah, and this video should be going up in pieces over the next week or so.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you so much for making it in. It was lovely to have you, and I look forward to speaking with you more in the future.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for having me, and looking forward to seeing this on the air.
Thank you everyone for watching, and if you like this video, remember to click on the like button and click on the dragon here to subscribe. And click here to rewatch the previous part of the interview.